Hi, my name is Grant Kramer, and I'm a professor at the University of Nevada, Reno. And I'm speaking to you from my Valley Road vineyard. Today, I'm going to talk to you about pruning grapes in a cold climate region, such as in northern Nevada. First, here are a few things that you should consider when we talk about the vineyard here in northern Nevada. We have periodic cold temperatures in the fall, in the winter, and the spring, which can cause dieback of the vines, sometimes all the way to the ground. This doesn't happen every year. In fact, sometimes it's about every 10 years for a severe event, although we can have some mild damages in other years. Therefore, we grow the grapes on their own roots to allow a faster renewal of the desired vines. Since they just die to the ground, the roots are still alive, and buds below the ground will break out and start as new shoots to be trained back up as a new trunk on the vine. And this will become more evident after this video. Under milder conditions, the symptoms may not show up at all, but there will be, in the first year, perhaps a little bit of reduced growth, particularly in the shoots that are coming off of the cordon, and others will be good and others will be stunted. And this is a sign of either trunk disease or, in this case, due to cold damage, crown gall formation. This will persist. It will not go away once it is activated. So the bacterium, Agrobacterium vitis, is a ubiquitous bacteria that lives inside the grapevine and is inactive under normal conditions. But when a cold event occurs, it activates the bacterium and it forms this crown gall, which is like a cancer. And this crown gall plugs the xylem and blocks water flow, and this is why you see a reduced growth. But it continues to progress, and by the second year, you will see severe damage with the vines dying all the way back, and the symptoms look something like in this next picture. So this is very severe crown gall. You can see this normal part of the trunk at the top, and that's what it should look like. But what you see is this cancerous growth that is forming at the base of these trunks. The vine has completely died at this point. And then so here in the spring, you can actually see some of the secondary shoots coming up from below ground now as a result of this dieback. Under normal circumstances, they would not be active and the buds would stay dormant. But when the shoot dies, the inhibition of that trunk, preventing those buds from breaking, allows them to start to grow. So in our pruning system, we take these facts into account when we're designing our system. In our vineyard, we use a unilateral cordon system where we grow a trunk up and bend it over onto the wire, and then we have our spurs being produced, and we like 8 spurs to produce 32 clusters. And in this picture, you're seeing the spur with a basal bud and 2 primary buds that will give rise to the shoots. As I explained in an earlier video, this basal or base bud will not be fruitful, and so we ignore that. I'll give another example or a picture of that in a moment. But we also train up a secondary trunk to be as an insurance in case this trunk should die back, as I just mentioned, from crown gall or some other damage. And this younger trunk, and we usually train them up for a year or 2 and then remove them so that we always have a young trunk growing up. We remove them only if this trunk remains healthy. So in the case that this trunk should die back, we would then allow these 2 buds to break, and we would lay down one of these shoots that are coming out to form a new cordon along the wire. And in the following year, we would grow up a brand new shoot next to this one in case this one needed a replacement. So another possible solution to this problem is some people bury their vines. We attempted this over several years and found it to be very difficult. Burying the vine protects the vine, but it's a lot of work to shovel dirt onto it. And it's also a problem in terms of when to uncover those vines. If you leave it too long, they become etiolated, meaning they become very white and elongated. And as soon as you expose them to the sun, they get sunburned and damaged. If you want more details, you can watch a 10-minute video I created in 2015 as a part of a workshop I was giving out in the vineyard, explaining in more details some of the considerations and strategies we use for the cold climate that we're in. You can find it on this YouTube channel at this particular spot. Here's a picture of the buds I was just mentioning. There's a basal bud, there's a primary, and two primary buds here, the first and the secondary buds, and we prune just above that. And finally, when should you prune in our kind of climate? Well, we always prune at bud break, but many people prune prior to bud break. Particularly, you'll find that in California. Timing is a consideration in terms of how much acreage you have to prune and how much time you need to prune those vines. But usually it's done in very late fall to early spring. But as I said, we do it at bud break in the spring. And the reason for this is that pruning, the removal of those buds, promotes earlier bud break in the remaining buds that are left behind. And this will cause problems for you if you should have a frost, that those buds will then be damaged. So by leaving the buds for the longest period of time on the vine, this inhibits the lower buds from breaking as much as 2 weeks, and therefore will give us a greater insurance or probability that we'll avoid a frost. So we don't recommend early pruning, but to wait until bud break is actually starting to occur, just as the buds are just starting to budge or swell. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for your time, and I hope you like this video.